All right, we're in the after party for the indie review show. So if you guys haven't yet, check out the review that Gary actually guest hosted and did a review of Monsters by Barry Windsor-Smith. And that book is a beauty, and I'm going to have to spend my hard-earned money on another book. Darn you, indie review show.
I know. And you know what though, for the amount, like in terms of like the value, like I think it's $40 or something, which
and Fantagraphics, they don't skimp on like quality either.
Yeah, so like a hardcover, 365-page, handy and hand-lettered, crazy. You know, it's sort of like that's okay. $40 is very fair.
Yeah. It's like a good $1 a year for the guy who made it. You know,
really, no kidding.
That's amazing. That's an incredible work, man. But you did a good job. I'm impressed, man. That's a lot of material to cover.
It was overwhelming. Like I have to admit, about halfway through preparing for this, I was like, this was a mistake. Like I don't know how to even talk about this book. And I actually went and looked at other people's reviews. That's when I pivoted from, like, how are we going to do this with the traditional kind of IRS format? Because it's just too much. It's too hard to bite into it. And I don't want to read all these dialogue, you know, like it's too much. And I saw that a lot of people were doing kind of what I did tonight, where it's like, let's just look at the art and I'll tell you about this book, you know, like, and not respect of what necessarily we're looking at. Once in a while, I'll say, look at this, but mostly just talking about it. And I thought, okay, if that's allowed, if people are doing it that way, I think that I can manage. Like,
100%. I mean, and I think that might be where our show is kind of leaning as well in the future, because there's just, like for instance, like the next book we're reviewing is like Daniel Klaus, like caricature, and it's like I think I'm gonna get more into like what's distinctive about Klaus's work, his use of like feathering, and it'll be interesting to like juxtapose that, because we already did Charles Burns, and there's a lot of like similarity and difference in like their approach, and just that like retro aesthetic of the colors and just what's so great about Daniel Klaus. Like but even that's intimidating to me, because Klaus was like one of the guys who got me really heavily into like slice of life stuff. And so it's like, how do you even, you know, personify like somebody who's a kind of like a legend? Right. Barry Windsor-Smith too. It's like these guys are like, you know, that reminds me of a funny story. I don't want to divert too much though. But so I went to like Neil Adams' like Krusty Bunkers a while ago.
Okay.
And I met Neil Adams' son, who like helps run the shop. And my son was like bragging to him that his dad's a cartoonist.
Yes.
And I'm like, son, his father is a cartoonist.
Yeah, please,
and I was like, and his father's in history books. Like, I'm nobody in this.
Right. People know.
But it was funny.
Even if they haven't read his work, they know his name. Yeah.
But it was funny. He even talked to my son, and he's like, "It's funny because we have that in common." And I'm like, "Yeah, you do."
You too? Yeah.
I was like, I'm trying to explain to Ben. I'm like, you know how we watched like reruns of like the X-Men cartoons, like, okay, so his dad like created like half the characters, like, crazy, you know, and a lot of the storylines like that we're watching. So you know how Magneto is really awesome
though, because to me the big takeaway is that your son is proud of the fact that his dad makes comics, you know, like that's kind of
it's pretty adorable. But what's funny is he doesn't act like that around the house. It's just like outside he was like, yeah, my dad draws comics too. You know? Which makes sense.
There's a funny, I remember when I was a kid, I don't know, as a kid I was very embarrassed about this story. Like, and my mom and dad would tell it about me, and I always kind of felt like the butt of the joke. But now looking back, I see why they told it, and I think I was just maybe being a little oversensitive. But I remember I was on a field trip when I was probably like in second grade or something, so however old that is. And my dad at that time, he was a police officer. All I knew is that he worked downtown. Of course, I had never seen his work. Like, I mean, he was a police officer. Like, not like the little boy is going to go but I knew he worked downtown. And we were on a field trip for school downtown, and we were walking from wherever the van took us or the bus took us to, I think, the Capitol building or wherever we were going down there as second graders. And I was walking alongside the teacher, and I pointed to just the tallest building I could see. And I said, my dad works in that building. And she said, I thought your dad was a police officer. I was like, yeah, that's right. And she's like, well, that's the Arizona Republic, which is our local newspaper. And I said, I just, without missing a beat, I was like, well, it's one of these buildings, and like she told that in a parent-teacher conference to my parents. Like, it was kind of funny. Gary like pointed to the tallest building and said, like, that's where my dad works. And it was the Arizona Republic, ha ha ha. And he's like, well, it's one of these buildings. They told that all the time when I was a kid, and I always felt so embarrassed. But I think it reminded me of that with your son's thing, where it was like, I just imagine like my dad works in probably the biggest building down here, like whatever that building is,
No, I had similar things too, because my brother, and funnily enough, like kind of similar. So my half brother was LAPD.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember, like, when I was really young, we went to like his academy graduation, and it was like this big thing because it was really hard. Like, the LAPD is like one of them, as much flack as they get, and a lot of it very justifiable, honestly. Right. It's also one of the hardest police academies to get into, like in the entire U.S. Because it's just like, it's kind of like the top of the top, right? Like, giant city. I think maybe New York would be like comparable, and maybe nowhere else. Yeah. And so, it was like this big deal, and we're all proud of him and stuff like that. And I remember, kind of bragging about like, hey, my brother's a cop and stuff. But like, whenever people would ask specifics, I had no idea like any of it. Right. I was like, I just didn't really know. Like, I barely ever. It's interesting, like a kid view of like what your relatives do or like siblings do and stuff when you're really tiny. It's like, I don't know.
And how shallow that really is. Like, you're understanding. Like, it's enough just to kind of know the thing. And it totally. I remember that age where, because my dad was a cop, my mom was like a medical assistant, and that was about the extent of what I knew about their work. Like, so if it was like, so they'd be like, so is your mom like a nurse? And I'd be like, I don't know, sort of, like, I maybe, I don't know. Yeah.
And that's funny too, because like, I think for Ben, like, he probably in his world, like, it might be kind of weird that like other people's parents don't draw, because his mom's like a kids book artist, and his dad's like an art director and then cartoonist. So it's like he's always seeing us draw. Like, in fact, that's the thing that often when he like wants us to play, we're like not able, because it's like my wife's like, I can't play, I have to paint this kid's book. Like, like, it's a weird thing.
That is very weird, because I mean, it's so normalized it. And
so I almost wonder if he's gonna like rebel by just being like, like, I'm gonna do athletics, Dad.
I'm gonna be a lawyer. Like, I'm gonna do like something very like other side of the brain. That is, I can't even imagine. And I think, like, even like, my dad drew, and that's what probably inspired me as a little kid. Like, you kind of want to, especially as a boy, like, you sort of want to be like your dad. So like,
for sure.
I would see him drawing all the time, so it was like, well, I want to do that too. And it wasn't until, and then you're in like, and especially I went to parochial school, so the class sizes were pretty small. Like, it was like maybe 20 kids in a class or something. It wasn't like public school where it could be these massive, like, actually my graduating class was 12 kids of 8th grade, 12 kids, 6 boys, 6 girls.
Wow.
So it was never a massive group. So even though usually I was the only kid in class who could draw, it didn't feel that, I wasn't like one kid in an ocean. Like, it was one kid in like 12 or 20, like, it wasn't until I was fully graduated, even out of college, because then you're taking art classes, you're surrounded by a bunch of other artists. Like, it seems more common maybe than it is. It was after I graduated college where I realized, like, creatives, you don't come across them too often. Like if you randomly meet someone on the street, on the bus, in a coffee shop, whatever, odds are they are not a creative. Like, so, and he's going to realize that in a big way. Like it's really overrepresented in his life. So.
Yeah, it's going to be strange and interesting, but I do think what's weird is too, he's probably going to know a lot of creatives because just by the nature of like the people, you know, like my wife's sister is like an artist, like, you know, my sisters both write, like it's, you know, it's like most of my close friends are cartoonists or artists, so it's like, I don't know, for him I think that'll be like a par for the course kind of thing. But you're right, like there might be like a world shock where it's like, wait, what? Like everybody is not, I don't know, you know.
Well,
I'm kind of curious.
Conversation where like he's trying to explain what his parents do to someone and they are a little lost. Like they're a little, so wait, like they make a living off that? They get paid? Like, I mean, you know, they're like, and all their weird ideas, the public's weird ideas about what it means to be a creative.
Oh yeah.
Like, he's gonna be like receiving that. It's gonna be weird. Yeah,
it's interesting. I can kind of relate to it because my dad was a graphic designer like before I was born, and then like had switched kind of industries like by the time I was born. So he's like working. Initially, he left graphic design to work and manage a giant print shop in Texas, and then by the time he came back and was like potentially going to go back into graphic design, it's like the whole industry had shifted to digital. And he just, like, my dad had like 4 degrees. So he's like, I don't want to go back to school just to like learn, you know, like some new program or whatever. But he was doing it like back in the day of like paste up and stuff. But what's interesting is like when I showed promise in art, like he always kind of had this, because he knew like what commercial art was, he was like, oh, that's a bummer. Like, but he always was really encouraging of it, but he was also very honest about like what the realities of that industry look like. And so it's interesting. I had this like mixed view, you know, where I was like, I still had the naivety of like a young kid, but still had a lot of stories from a veteran where you're like, oh, okay, like it's a, you know, it's a tough industry, you know? But it's even then, you know, it's, I don't know. That's always fascinating. I don't know. I wonder if Cory has had that because your daughter's a little older now. So like she's at least at the age where she might realize like not everybody's dad like draws stuff. I don't know. Curious about that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
Cory, what did your parents do?
My dad was a woodshop teacher that coached freshman basketball in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then my mom's a stay-at-home mom, but was had a teaching credential and was artistic, but didn't do a ton with it. She started painting portraits a little bit at the end before I moved out of the house. She's doing a lot more of that. She's retired now, but yeah, that's what they did. But the interesting thing about them was I was unaware until I was like well into an adulthood that it's not normal to, like, I was married for several years before, like, so mid-30s before I realized like, oh, people don't normally think that they can just do something. Like I was just raised in an environment where you could probably just figure it out, you know, like whatever it was. Oh, we're gonna tile our own floor. Yeah, we could probably figure that out. Yeah. I need to build an entertainment center. Yeah, I could probably just sketch that on some paper and then spend a week making it out of wood and it exists, you know. Or like, I mean, like my mom made the high school mascot costume like by hand with like and it looked really good. Like it looked like one of the professionally built ones. And I just remember sitting there with a serrated edge like bread knife and this giant plastic pumpkin that we had found at like some discount bulk store or something. And we were just sitting there cutting out holes for the face and then, you know, like gluing fabric on. And like we made this professionally made costume that I think it was indistinguishable from like, you know, like what you would buy And so like stuff like that was always around. Like I remember as a kid, they were like, hey, we're painting a mural. And this is before like projectors were really inexpensive. So you'd have to like grid it out. And so I just remember like, me and my mom and my dad and a couple of my siblings that were a little bit older, like we just went out there and we showed everybody how to do it. We're like, all right, so we've got this piece of paper. So now we're just going to take this grid and we're just going to put it on the wall. And if you see a line, and so we would go do this stuff. And then we just, like, I'm like 12 and I'm like telling adults like, okay, this section needs to be blue. This section needs to be yellow, mix the paint like this. But yeah. I mean, so it was kind of I'd call it more of like a maker's house than like an artistic house. It was just very much like, you could probably make something work. That's also like growing up in California on a single income high school teacher's salary with 4 kids.
Yeah.
Making stuff was kind of essential because like you either created it or got it as a hand-me-down or it wasn't available.
Yep. I relate to that a lot, actually.
And more, I feel like, I mean, you definitely, I just see this like in my day job, but just in life, like there are 2 kinds of people. There are people who, if they're confronted with something they don't know how to do, they reflexively believe like, well, this has to be doable. And they set about like figuring it out, however, whatever you're talking about. They run to YouTube, they find a book, they ask someone like, how would you do that? Like, like you've done this before, tell me how. Like, but there's this inherent belief like, I'm sure I can do this. Like, I'm sure I can figure it out. And then there's definitely a group of people who, as soon as they run into something that's not in their experience or knowledge, they just dead end. They just don't know what to do. And it's weird. Like, it's something I've only noticed in the past few years, but there's definitely those 2 groups. I also just a quick sidetrack. Josh, could you please assure Squatchy that D versus M 1979 is basically written, it's in the works, wheels are in motion, it's happening, and it's a real thing, like he can relax, the comic is coming?
Squatchy, I can't guarantee any of that. I will. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, the comic is very well on its way and will be worthwhile when you see the final result. I can say that with some secret insider information that I don't want to reveal too much because then Men in Black will appear here and I might.
There we go. Thank you.
Also left out. I don't have any secret insider information.
Thank you, Squatch. Work's always happening, even if it doesn't look like it.
I'm still waiting to get like murdered in one of Squatch's comics. Like I keep seeing all these cartoonists guest appear in comics, and I'm like, hey,
I was introduced, and was that the only? Did I just make the one appearance, Squatch? What the hell? Maybe you should be working.
Yeah, that's true. You should be working and having us both be murdered in your comic. That seems like is it that too much to ask?
Here's the pitch, and I think you'll like this, Squatch. Josh and I are having a picnic, not working on whatever we're supposed to be working on. Mm-hmm. And you show up and like kind of get us back on track. How about that?
I like that. I I love the idea of a picnic too. It just kind of pokes fun at our hipsterdom. I love it.
It'll be something kind of violent and raunchy. Will probably happen, but it's.
Hey, I'm open. I'm open to it. He said too much talky, more worky, and then he said, haha, I have ideas. Oh no, what did we get into?
Maybe we will live to regret calling him out. Maybe this is a horrible mistake.
I have a feeling like it's going to be us doing a live stream and then just getting brutally destroyed.
I want to see him come through the wall like the Kool-Aid live stream.
The Kool-Aid Man bit is a classic. It's hard to it's hard to explain that to anyone who didn't grow up like with cartoons where you had to sit through commercials. That's
true.
That's one thing though. I have to say, like that'll be a life experience thing that I don't think anybody, like any of our kids, will ever like fully relate to. It's like the idea of like having to like sit and watch like a commercial in order to get to like the juicy stuff.
Or
I don't know.
a certain time. Like to watch a show at a certain, not just like one a week like Marvel sometimes does, but like a certain time. And if you're not parked in front of your TV, which is about 125 pounds, by the way, you know, at this time, like you're out of luck, dude. Like you missed it. It's gone.
That's true. And then you're just kind of hoping for a rerun. Like, dude, so how are you guys holding up with all, I hate to bring this to weather, but like, how are you guys hanging in there with the crazy record heat? Is that just California? I know it's like hit the Northwest as well, but I'd imagine it's got to be hitting Arizona.
Yeah, the Northwest is. I've got family up there in Seattle and Portland, and they're like, it's 115 degrees. Like nobody has air conditioning, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I read it got to 117 in Salem, which I feel is just like revenge for like their witch trials back in the day. That's like that's revenge. I'm kidding, by the way. That was just a Salem diss. I know nothing. But I mean, like, how about where you're at? Like, Cory, are you getting any of that crazy heat? I'd imagine it's probably still snowing where you are, right?
So I never want to be the guy that like intentionally undersells where I am, but like I don't want people to move here.
Yeah.
I kind of want to lie and say that it's really hot and horrible, but like it's like mid 80s. Like I went kayaking the other day. There's a nice breeze across the river and it might have approached 90, but I don't think it got there. I got a little bit of a sunburn because I was out there for a couple hours and forgot to put sunscreen on. But like I mean, the snow is awful in the winters, but I mean, other than that, it's an ideal situation up here.
So, all right. Well, soak it up, Cory, because once the winter comes, we're rubbing it in.
I don't want people to realize that you could sell your house in California and buy a mansion in cash where I live. And the only thing you would have to do is deal with the snow for a few months out of the year. And then the rest of the time, it's incredibly beautiful and surrounded by like on three sides by three different national parks. Like it's pretty cool. You know, people will make fun of you for living in a state that they don't know if it's Iowa or Idaho, and they're not exactly sure where it's located.
I would that this whole pandemic experience will get us one step closer to blowing up this antiquated idea of coastal cities and coastal states and important areas where if you need to do a job, you need to be in this hot spot or that hot spot, where like if anyone could in theory work from home, we all could be living like that. Like we could all be fine. Like that, if you could live anywhere on the map and do your job, that would be pretty amazing.
Yeah. And if you could make California money and live in the Midwest, or you can make New York money and live somewhere where there are fewer people within 100 miles of me than there are within 10 miles of where Josh is.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, like, so this I feel is like one of the secrets of kind of where I live too. It's like in California, like it's not always ideal and stuff, but here's the thing I love about the Antelope Valley, which is crazy because a lot of like younger kids and stuff like hate it out here because there's not much to do, you know? But the cool thing is like, okay, so today if I like forgot something and I have to go to the grocery store, I just drive there, I park, I go get groceries, I get in my car and I leave. And it takes a whole of maybe like 20 minutes, 15 minutes. It takes as long as the drive. I don't sit in traffic, like have to find like a crazy space, like fight to get there. All of Los Angeles is like that, where even in doing my little like comic shopping where I'm going to different comic book stores and kind of like meeting people in person and like, you know, pushing my wares. It's been fun, like from like a visitor standpoint, but I've just been reminded like how thankful I am I don't live in that area. It'll take like 40 minutes to find a parking space at a comic book shop. Like
honestly, the idea of finding a parking space, it drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
Well, even in the Phoenix area, that's a crazy idea to me. But I've had that every time I go to California. It's this weird thing of like, where are we going to park?
yeah, it's insanity. In Phoenix, that especially would be weird because I've been there, and it's like it's a really fascinating city to me because it's so broad. Like
Yeah,
it's
the
most
sprawl
like
is crazy.
yeah, like Los Angeles, it's like you have everything kind of crunched up, like tight and just crazy weaving freeways throughout everything and streets, like just everything's crunched in. But in Arizona, it's like it was just weird to me, like in Phoenix, like where you'd have like a grocery store and then you'd have like just empty space for a long period of time, and then you'd have like a major building, and it's like, but how is there that much space? Like it's crazy. It really is like
space is like if you drove from one end of the valley to the other. I mean, it's I don't even know how far that would be. Like, but what's kind of, I will say, I don't, I've lived in the Phoenix area most of my life, with the exception of when I went away to college. And so it's like any place you've lived basically your whole life. I love it and hate it. There's things that I like, there's things that I don't. But
yeah,
I will say this, it is a super car-friendly place, which is good because you absolutely have to have a car. Like I mean, now some people will quibble and dispute and say like, oh, you can get by with like, Uber and bikes and whatever. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. Like they're living a block from where they work or something. But like, especially here with the summer, like there's you need a car, but you also need the car because there are literally parts of the valley that could be like 40 miles away, and like it's still sort of the Phoenix area, it's or 60. I mean, it's crazy.
yeah.
If you're going to get, like when I went to Joshua Tree a few months ago, it feels like, it's not literally, but it feels like half the trip is just getting out of the valley. Like you're just driving and driving and driving and driving. And after it feels like forever, okay, now we're kind of out of the Phoenix area. Now we're in the desert. And then you're hitting the border. Like it's crazy how broad it is. But like I said, car friendly. The freeway system is great. And even if I had to go, like I'm basically, I don't know, I'm basically Central Valley.
Yeah.
But if I had to go to whatever the furthest part of the valley is, I'm right near a freeway. Most parts of town are more or less near a freeway. Nothing is more than 30 or 45 minutes away. Like, in any part of the crazy sprawl, which I know when I've visited LA and had to drive around, like the distance I can get in 30 or 45 minutes in LA is nowhere close how far, like, 30 or 45 minutes in Phoenix, like you went a long way. Like you really went to the other side of town. Where like LA, it's like sadly not very far.
No, I mean like a good example of, just to put this into reality too. It's like we were in West Hollywood, which is like downtown, and like we went from one comic shop about a mile and a half to another comic shop. A mile and a half took us 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Because of all the crazy traffic and parking and all that kind of stuff.
I would lose my mind.
Yeah,
like,
that would drive me nuts. Like
yeah.
I don't mind it as a visitor or like as somebody stopping in there. And actually I'm even thinking of doing the LA Comic-Con because I was gonna do Long Beach, but like their organizer sucks, and at least so far from what I'm understanding, because they don't get back to you when I'm like just asking a basic question, like if I fill out this form that says it's for 2020, is that going to be for 2020 or is this for like the current thing? And like no responses. So I'm like, I don't really feel comfortable giving them like my financial info, like if I can't get a hold of them. Whereas LA Comic-Con, I was like, hey, I'm interested in a booth, and then boom, just instantly got back to me. So I'm thinking LA might be the way to go. But I'll go there, I'll visit. I like being in proximity where I can get there very quickly because there's a lot of great things in LA. There's a lot of good opportunities. There's a lot of great jobs in my area and stuff. But as for like living in a giant city, I'm kind of over it. Yeah. But I don't know. I do think Phoenix seems like a different kind of city. But I will say also from visiting Arizona, like it's kind of like today, like I'm doing biking as an exercise and I've managed to do that. But what I've realized is like there's some days where I'm just not going to be able to. Like today, by the time I got home from work, it's like 108. And I'm like, I'm not going to like, there's like a warning basically, put out where it says like, don't go outside or work out outside. Like you could die.
Yeah.
So
It's not, I mean, you have to do it like first thing in the morning.
Yeah. And I imagine somebody trying to like bike around town in Arizona where like it just gets like the heat is so bad that like you could probably pass out from like walking a block.
100%. And especially as you get older, like what I think about more and more is like when I was a kid, I can't believe I used to run around out in this. Like, and I used to pedal my bike out in this, and I used to go and play, like walk to here or there out in this crazy like 110, 115. Where now, like I think that would be not just horrible, maybe dangerous. I don't know. Like I really would want to think like that. I told you I was at that house that we're cleaning out and getting ready to live in today. Not this weekend, but next weekend, we're going to go and spend the weekend kind of tearing some stuff down and cleaning it out and pulling stuff out of there and getting it ready for painting and flooring and all that kind of stuff. And I'm already thinking like, I guess I should load an igloo with like a bunch of water, and I should really like, like we need to prepare for the fact that we're going to be in this house with no AC. It'll probably be like 112, and we'll be, working.
That's insanity. What was the, oh my goodness. Oh, I forgot to call this out. So this is a bit that I always try to do whenever I'm live streaming. Be Herbivore 13 said, want to become famous, buy followers, primes, and viewers on, I don't know how to respond to that, but apparently you can buy primes. What is buying prime? What is that even?
I don't know.
Do you know what prime is?
I don't know what it is. It's probably something we're supposed to know about. Like now I feel inadequate, and I feel like maybe I should go to bigfollows.com, which I'm going to make the same joke I made last time. They wouldn't give them that name if they couldn't deliver on the big follows. I mean,
is this the same company?
Well, I think so. I mean, if I understand the internet correctly, it's very carefully monitored, and they make sure there's some truth in advertising.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Tell people their URLs. So it sounds legit to me. I mean,
for sure, yeah. I mean, like anytime you are looking for like a hotel to stay in, like when you're on vacation, you always want to look for the words "best" in the title.
Yeah,
because
Google that.
Yeah, they don't lie when they say best motel. It's always the best.
Right.
And so when they say big follows, I'm guessing this is massive. Like this is probably how you become a rock star. I think that's how Barry Windsor-Smith got famous as an artist.
I think so. In fact, just as an example of what you're saying, just to show that it's absolutely true. I, the other day, was Googling, I wanted to know where the best pancakes were in my part of the valley. So I Googled best pancakes. And the first hit, mind you, was Denny's. Now that surprised me, but I thought like, well, I mean, that's what came up. That's what Google showed me. So presumably I misjudged Denny's, and those are in fact the best pancakes in town. And I guess I should give them a try.
Oh my gosh. You know what that reminds me? I have not been to a Denny's in a really long time. Time.
That's because you're not a meth addict or a 27-year-old with nothing to do at 2 a.m. I think those are like, aren't those like the staple Denny's, that and like the people who eat dinner at 3:45 p.m.?
Pretty much.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, thinking back, it was mostly in art school when we were up really late.
Yeah, I think the only time I've ever been to a Denny's is like where it was go to a Denny's or make really bad decisions, and the Denny's was the better decision.
Like in college in my 20s, like, and it was because it was a place that was open at 3 a.m. Like,
and I was going to say, do you have to separate the bad decisions from Denny's? But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's all sort of in the same.
I said really bad decisions. Like there's a range. There's a grade.
But
I think given other things that you could do outside at night at 3 a.m., I think Denny's it's not a great choice, but it's better.
Like if you're a mess, I agree with Squatch. That's what I was gonna say. Like if you're a mess at 3:30 in the morning, sitting there and eating a grilled cheese sandwich and some fries is like, of all the things you could be doing, like that's not so bad. Like
that's true.
It's like if there's just half a dozen early 20-year-olds, like 18 to 25, that's probably the best thing that you can do after midnight. Because nothing that me and my buddies came up with, like, I remember just like, oh, let's go out to so-and-so's ranch and see if we can make something explode. Like, that's not a good decision.
Yeah.
That or want to eat some crappy fries and pretend like we're going to spend some money when we really just want bottomless soda? Sure.
Yeah, and I will also say like that Meat Lover's skillet really absorbs like extra alcohol in your system if you have it.
It's totally not scientific, or maybe it is. Maybe someone has done the research. There is something about a greasy, heavy, protein-filled meal when you're screwed up. That kind of makes you feel like a human again. Like
I've never been drunk, but I have lived in a culture that their entire culture is based on being drunk, and I can tell you that having lived in Scotland for 2 years, there's something to that. Because
there's gotta be.
And I think with any food from Scotland,
they sell steak fries in full like grocery sacks. Like not like here's your steak fries, or even Five Guys were like, whoa, that's a lot of fries. They gave me like a drinking cup full of. No, it's like you take one of those giant old school 1987 paper bags that you used to like cut up to cover like 3 or 4 textbooks in, right? And you fill the bottom third of that with probably 10 pounds of potatoes, and you eat that for lunch with some salt and vinegar, or like you take a raw pizza and you fold it in half and you batter it like a corn dog and then deep fry it and eat it like a taco.
What?
Oh yeah,
that's a thing.
Oh, and it's one of the best things that exists on this planet. But if you eat one more than once every 6 months, you're going to die. I found this out. So like the first thing they did is like, all right, we got to get a deep fried Snickers bar. I'm like, okay, let's get a deep fried Snickers bar. And I'm not exaggerating.
At least once in their life.
Yeah, you should. Yeah. Like that's a fairground kind of staple. If you ever walk by one of those places, it's like, hey, we're doing deep fried Twinkies and deep fried everything. Just get one of everything and then never do it again in your life. Fried
Snickers, go down the line.
Imagine an entire country's cuisine basically being ripped off by the carnies. That's where fair food came from. Was like, well, what are the Scottish people doing? Oh, deep frying candy bars now. Sure, let's do that. What else are they doing? Oh, deep frying pizzas. What else? Oh, just a giant piece of bread, and we'll just deep fry it, call it like an elephant's ear or something. I don't know. Just what else are they doing? I
haven't even heard that word since I was a kid. Elephant ear. That's amazing.
I think the healthiest thing that you can eat in Scotland is probably like bangers and mash.
Yeah, I was gonna say haggis.
Yeah, haggis. Ironically, like haggis is not as ubiquitous as like. Everybody says like the instrument of Scotland is bagpipes. I would say it's the accordion. You see way more accordions on the street being played than you do bagpipes.
That's funny.
Way more. But anyway, so I ate a deep fried Snickers bar, and I was like, wow, that was really good. I was 19, so I can handle it, right?
Scary good. Like
I could eat this often and be totally okay with it.
Oh, see, I didn't have that reaction. I remember in college I met a guy who had tried cocaine. I've never tried cocaine. And I asked him, what's it like? And he's like, I had one line of it, and it was amazing. So amazing that I decided I can never have that again. That was my reaction to a deep fried Snickers bar. Like I ate it, I was like, that's amazing. I'm never doing that again. That's dangerous and could kill me.
And that's probably why you look like you and I look like me. But like 6 months later, I decided I want another one of those. And so I had another one, and it was great. And I loved it, and I had a good experience. A month after that, I decided I'm going to have another one, and I almost died. So I will tell you, you have to wait 6 months in between. That's why they sell them at fairs and not at like Taco Bell. Because I
No.
think Taco Bell would like kill people. If
Yeah.
you could go in America and get a deep fried Snickers bars whenever you wanted, people would just be dead.
People would be dropping dead for sure.
There's just no way. And yeah, I mean, but Squatchy's saying like pizza tacos are legit. You take the pizza taco and you cover it in like more salt than any human should eat in a week. You just put that on your deep fried pizza taco, and then you cover it in vinegar, and then you just eat it.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Okay. Yeah.
Salt and vinegar. Yeah.
All right.
I can get into this. I love that this whole unhealthy food thing just stemmed from the discussion of late nights at Denny's, and it makes perfect sense.
Well, I was going to like that one up me, pizza tacos and deep fried Snickers. I was going to mention, and I'm sure Josh is well familiar with this, like nothing, again, if you're screwed up at 2 or 3 in the morning, nothing beats hitting a drive-through Mexican joint and getting a California burrito.
Oh my gosh.
Guacamole and fries and beef and beans and just everything. Like they basically just look around the kitchen and just roll it up in a giant 1-pound burrito. It'll make you feel good.
If you can do like just some heavy chorizo, like on a good old like breakfast burrito or something, like which is my favorite, probably my all-time like if there's a food like what you were just describing about deep fried Snicker bars being like too good to like refuse, that's the food I can't refuse. Like any day of the week that I'm able to rock like a really good breakfast burrito with chorizo, 100%. I will abandon all plans for the day and just rock that giant delicious thing that I'm gonna regret like 3 hours later.
Totally. If you say like, this place has a great chorizo breakfast burrito, like I would probably travel for that. Like, I gotta have that.
I don't know what this is.
Chorizo is like a spiced Mexican sausage.
Yeah.
It's crumbled up usually when you get it.
And you want to get the legit stuff. Like there's like a veggie version that's kind of okay, but that's not real. And then also there's if you get it at like a place that's not super authentic, like, or they're just kind of cheaping out on you, it'll be like really greasy, like, and like a really good chorizo is like almost pink, like when it's cooked. It looks so good.
It's very red or pink. And it shouldn't be too greasy. It should have. It's not like a burny spice, but it's a very smoky burn, like kind of
Yeah,
so
it can give a little
carne asada fries and Al Pastor street tacos.
Oh yes,
he knows his stuff. He's like.
Well, and here's the thing. I will tell you, most states are going to claim to have good Mexican food, but in Southern California, we have really good Mexican food, and it's really hard to compete.
I feel the same with Arizona.
Arizona, the areas toward the border, maybe.
Yeah, I would never say Arizona beats California. I would want to call it a friendly draw. Like, I think, but I feel like any other place, like when I hear about people, we can fight about it if you want. But like when I hear people saying like, oh, there's the best Mexican place, like near where I live, and like, where do you live? It's like Chicago. It's like, just shut the F up. Like, I don't even know.
No.
You don't even know what you're talking about. You've never even had Mexican food. Like,
Arizona's gonna have much more authentic Mexican food than like these like Midwestern places that are pretending that they have anything close to what is Mexican food. I will say that my favorite place that I've had Mexican food outside of California was actually New Mexico, weirdly enough, and it's a totally different kind of Mexican food. It's like
strong. It's one of my favorite versions.
Yeah, and it's hot. Yeah, it's like if you took like traditional Mexican food and then you just cranked up the heat to like 11.
Yeah.
But it does have like an authentic feel to it. Tex-Mex is pretty good too, but like I don't know, like California, especially like you go to like San Diego or something, it's like you can't really beat that. Like that is the best you're gonna get on this side of the border.
That's where I would say, like, if you want to like do a head-to-head Mexican food like city battle, like California has to pick San Diego, like, you know, to like go up against whoever you're doing.
Yeah. But it is, but that's true. Like I never think of, because I'm like instantly thinking like Arizona versus California, and I'm not thinking of like, well, Arizona Mexican food. Like I remember going there on a visit and like a buyer being like, "This is really authentic," and I was like, "This is not authentic." But I will say, if I was like comparing it to like Cleveland or something, like there's no comparison. Like Arizona every time, you know.
Well, and I can tell you, like I grew up here, and I know natives who I would still say gently have never really had Mexican food. Like they've gone to these places that my mom used to always refer to as like the gringo Mexican places, like that are all just like, it's Mexican food for white people. Like if you're not at a place where you can actually get like beef cheek or tongue tacos or something like that, or menudo that actually has tripe in it, things like that, like you're not really doing authentic street Mexican food. But
you know,
and
Squatch
like,
is pointing out,
you brought up liquid guac. That's like one of the worst things I've ever, like that. I would immediately just rule a place out that did that. But
yeah, I mean, you know, it depends, right? Like if I'm going to like a cheap fast food place that's like faux Mexican food, like Taco Bell or something, which is not a Mexican food, like that's like, okay, whatever. You know, everything's like in a tube and like everything's fluid there. So like fluid guac doesn't freak me out there because it's all just a bunch of like stuff on it, squirted out.
Anyone who wants to go down a YouTube rabbit hole tonight and is amused by stuff like this that I am, go to YouTube and Google something like first Taco Bell commercial or early Taco Bell commercial. There's a commercial where I can't remember the actor's name. He was a guy who was on Dallas. This is when he was basically still a teenager. It was basically, you can tell by watching it, there's this confused customer at the counter. And he's asking like, what's that? And he's like, that's a tostada. It's a crispy corn, like, and he's like, you can tell exactly what this commercial is. It's like, let's carefully explain this weird alien food to like, you know, just basically the straights. You know, like, let's introduce this in a very simple preschooly way. Let me explain to you what a tostada is. Let me explain to you what a taco is. It's pretty great. It's pretty entertaining, especially if you grew up in the Southwest and you know what all that is.
The funny thing to me is that Americanized Mexican food, the difference between the dishes is they're all the same. It's just how the tortilla is involved. Is it wrapped around it? Is it folded in half? Is it rippled? You know, is it like folded in some sort of weird origami disc?
Oh, like Taco Bell is like what? It's the same 5 ingredients.
Yeah, there's no difference.
No,
that's literally why they were like, I don't know, let's make the shell a Dorito now, because like you don't change anything else.
Yeah,
you can choose which of the 3 sauces we have to go with the bean gun, and I mean they're literally shooting it out of a gun. It's a gun with a tube on it, and they squirt the chicken or the beef or the beans out of the gun into the tortilla, and then you just decide whether the tortilla is hard, soft, folded in half, flat, or folded into an origami disc. That's or wrapped around like a cylinder. Like there's like, but you actually go to Mexico and you're like, oh, tacos are different than burritos. Yeah, like, there is a difference. Like I worked on a landscaping crew growing up in California as a teenager, and like my buddies on the crew who were like adult men that were like married, you know, immigrants from Mexico, like it was drastically different food than I had, and it was amazing. But it was like the weirdest ingredients, and they had no plan, and everybody for lunch, like you would just show up with whatever ingredient you and your wife made that morning, and then it would become the burrito of the day that you would all eat. And it was like, so one time somebody shows up with a bunch of like, you know, egg whites, and somebody else shows up with some flan, and somebody else shows up with some whatever, and just right there in the dirt, you're sitting on the half done lawn, and we're just dicing it all up for lunch and making a burrito out of it. And it was like every time I was like, there's no way this combination of things is going to taste good. And every single time it was amazing.
They make it work. Yeah. And I think that's the thing. Like, you know, I know where a lot of the really good places are, but most of them, yeah, I mean, you have to you have to have a little bit of your Lewis and Clark spirit, like you have to not be too scared. Like I'm going to tell you right now, like nobody's going to speak English in there, and you're going to see 8 kinds of meat options for your taco, and off the top of your head, you can only think of 3. And like, I mean, there's going to be some stuff that might be a little intimidating. It's not going to be as clean as maybe some places, and like, but you got to go with it. It's to me like I did dim sum in Chinatown in San Francisco once. And the person who took us there, they knew how to get back. This wasn't like one of the tourist places. This was back where like the
Right.
locals ate. Like, and it was all just like old Chinese dudes smoking, reading Chinese newspapers. Like this place was legit. And I had no idea what I was eating. Zero idea. Like, and you just kind of have to trust the process. It's like, it's going to be an adventure, and it's all going to be delicious. And maybe I don't know,
I had a drastically different experience with authentic Chinese food. I'll tell you two quick stories. First is because I have led a weird life. There was an American finishing school for Japanese girls. Okay, so it was like a finishing school that you would have in like the 1800s, how they teach you how to be a proper like plantation lady, right? There was one of those for Japanese girls, and so there's these really rich families that would send their girls over to the school. They hired me to like travel with them and like film this like literary tour that we were going on. So we saw like Thoreau's cabin, and we went out like all over the place, right? And we ate as a treat, we ate like gourmet Chinese food. Mm-hmm. And it was stuff I had never seen before. And it was amazing. And my translator like leaned over one time and said, what you're about to eat, I've never actually seen it in person, but I've heard about it. It is $65 an ounce.
Whoa.
And I was like, whoa. So it was like really good stuff. And so then I thought, because I'm kind of a bland dude. I'm like, I just like Americanized things. I'm cool with them, whatever. But I was like, well, maybe I really do like authentic, like I like Panda Express, but like maybe I really do like authentic Chinese food, right? I think I like authentic, if we're getting into a class system, rich people Chinese food. Because then I was working for a different company, and all of these salesmen that would like go to like the factories to like help make decisions on how they're making the instruments that we're producing and things like that. So we're building guitars and doing all this stuff. And the lead guy, I don't even know how to describe this guy. One of the most extravagant gentlemen I've ever met in my life. He was in his late 80s, early 90s. He wore shiny snakeskin shoes with like brass buckles on them, and like a different colored tailor suit every day in different shoes. His outfit alone, like people from miles around would wait for him to like, he would open up his house and he would have a sale of all of the clothes that were a year old once a year. And then he would buy a completely new wardrobe. So it was like that kind of extravagant gentleman, right? And so, and he had been working in the music industry for, I think, about 70 years, because I think he started when he was like 20.
Wow.
And so he knew everything about everything. I mean, he was like, oh yeah, those Dido kids, with the plastic cone hats or whatever. Like I gave them their look I was talking to them at the show, a while ago, and it was a while ago. So I think it was like 80s or 90s or something. And I said, hey, what you should do is wear some really like thin suits with thin ties, and then that became a thing. I told them how to do that, and they did it in a music video.
He was there for all of it. Yeah.
Right. So he was that guy. So he said,
wait. So this guy created the plastic Devo hat? That's amazing.
No, not the hat. There was one music video where they wore really tight-fitting thin suits and a really tight tie, and he actually based it on one of his coworkers. He's like, see that guy over there? You want to look like that guy in your next video. And so he did. And so they did it. Anyway, there's stuff like that. He had all kinds of weird stories because he was like the Ibanez rep in the West Coast. Like he was the one, like if you wanted to be sponsored by Ibanez, you had to go through this guy. Anyway, so he was just this. Anyway, all of that is to say, world traveler, very interesting fellow. And he was like, all right, we're going to go out to authentic Chinese. This is the most authentic Chinese that you can get. Like when I go to China, this is what it tastes like. I'm like, okay, so it sounds interesting. And I had already had this experience where I had like authentic gourmet Chinese food that was like $65 an ounce. And they brought out like 12 different stages of the meal, or whatever. And so I was kind of excited. I walked in. We are the only white people in the entire place. Mm-hmm. There is a fish tank that almost has no water in it because it's got so many animals in it. Like just stacked high, barely, water in between the gaps. And this is the first time that I realized that I had never actually seen a prawn or a shrimp in its natural state. I'd always seen them like de-pooped, and they have so many appendages that I was unaware of. And they were all in my soup.
Yeah.
And all still alive. And I was like, this is authentic. It was like, and it might have been death throes. Like, I don't think they were really alive, but like, it was a little twitchy, like some of those little phalanges and some of those antennae would just twitch every once in a while. And I was like, whoa. So this was recently killed. Like, this is probably as I walked in, that was where they got it. But it was just like,
ordered. Yeah.
And I didn't know what to order. So and no one spoke English. And so I just kind of like, I shrugged,
whatever,
go for it. And so they ordered whatever they ordered. And it smelled exactly like low tide on a hot day.
Oof.
And so when people are like, oh, it's the most authentic, that isn't necessarily a good thing in my mind. Like, I've had really incredible authentic and really authentic. And I'm like, there is a huge difference.
Yeah, well, what's weird is authentic and not something you want. Like I was an anthropology major. I watched a lot of videos of hunter-gatherers digging up beetle grubs that are this big and like biting them in half because it was this like amazing treat to find one. That's authentic.
Right. It is authentic. Yeah.
You could technically call like eating really crappy barbecue like authentic to American food. It's not necessarily like just because it's authentic doesn't mean it's going to be like the really good barbecue. It just kind of, and I will say like, like, of course, gourmet is going to make a difference. Like if you're like, hey, this is authentic, like, pasta or something, but it's made by like some, it's one of those like fine restaurants. It's like $90 and or, $100 and you get in and they don't even like, you don't have a choice in the menu. You just get served whatever it is.
Yeah,
like that's always going to be better.
Right. That's true. Like, as with all things, execution is king. Like, who's making it? Like, this might be actually what someone would make in their house, but who's the someone?
Yeah. I don't know. It was authentic, and all the salespeople seemed to love it.
Yeah.
So I was like,
I love it. I just love the idea of like us calling ourselves authentic artists. And does that mean we're good? I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
Are we going to be the low tide artists? I don't know. But we are authentic. Cool. So we've gone about an hour. And I have work early in the morning, and I think you do too, Gary, and as do you, Cory. So
now I might need to swing and get a California burrito or something, or
I know.
I am really seed of Jack in the Box, and boy, nothing beats a Jack in the Box taco. It is not authentic. It is nowhere near authentic.
Those $2 dollar tacos are amazing, but I think they're $2 now. But it was like the 2 for $1. Those are so
2 for $1. Oh.
I know Cory has a story for.
Yeah, I have real problems with the food that I can't eat while I'm driving when it's fast food. And those tacos, they should be portable, right? But like every single time, I'm like, how is there this much hot grease still coming out of this thing? Like. 10 minutes later, and I've been holding it vertical.
That's what the sleeve for.
Produce as much as you're going to buy it off. Like you just kind of. That's what the sleeve is for.
The sleeve is there to catch like the excrement from the taco.
Let's not call it excrement. Let's call it something else.
Oh wait, I just.
But I love it, and I really like Jack in the Box every once in a while. It's great.
Oh, it's great. I tell people all the time, like this is something my girlfriend and I talk about. Like she had never had a Jack in the Box taco in her life until like a few years ago. And I was like, you don't understand. You don't understand. Like I really talked them up. Really talked them up, which is probably a mistake.
Oh,
and I actually
hilarious.
so we got her Jack in the Box tacos, and like she'll still bring she's like, those were the most disappointing. Like it's just so like not that they're nothing like any kind of an authentic or even an inauthentic taco.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know why they're called tacos. I mean, maybe technically, but there's as much taco as like a McDonald's hamburger is a burger. Like it's sort of, it's kind
That's true. Actually, that's a good point. Jack in the Box taco is to tacos what like a cheeseburger is to burgers from McDonald's.
Yeah, it's good, but I wouldn't necessarily call it a good example of that. You know?
Yeah, like if you can
like
still
crunchy,
make money, if you can still make money and sell it for 29 cents, it's not even food at that point. Like I remember when I was in college, they're like, we're doing the throwback thing, and it was such a good deal they had to limit it to 10.
Yeah.
Like and so for $3.11, I could buy 10 McDonald's hamburgers and a small strawberry milkshake. And I don't think if I consumed all of that, I don't think I actually ate any food.
Yeah.
None of that was
right through you.
It's an open question.
Yeah.
Same with the Jack in the Box tacos. They'll have deals of that where you can get like a box of them for dollars. And
man,
if you're in college,
it's
amazing. It's amazing to be able to get 10 Jack in the Box tacos and just sit and wolf them down. It's fantastic.
They are so good, and like they don't really stay in your system, but they're so good at the time. Like they're just like this greasy, spicy, crunchy thing. And
if they cool down even a little bit, they're like terrible. Like there's like a moment in time. It's like a dandelion puff. Like you need to eat it right now, and it's going away. Like
it kind of reminds you of the importance of seizing the day, because you have to eat that taco as soon as possible.
On how nothing lasts forever, and you should enjoy it while it lasts.
Also meditation on the fact that you need to be very close to a toilet. Like your proximity to a room where you can evacuate your bowels quickly. It's very important.
Yeah, you want to just maybe don't have anything important planned for the rest of the day.
I love this conversation. This was fun. All right. Well, so before we wrap up, make sure you guys go check out the Indie Review show, where where Gary guested and did a review of Barry Windsor-Smith's Monsters, and then and that's at irsagency.com. I'll take you right there. And then Cory, you can check out his work at corykerr.com, and also follow him on the Instagram, Cory Kerr again. And then Gary, Dinosaurs versus Mars Bots, pretty much everywhere, but where else? Anywhere else?
Under my name on YouTube.
Gary Hodges.
YouTube. I'm trying to get to 100 subscribers. Very modest. I'm not one of these jackasses out there saying like I need 1 million subscribers. Just 100. Just 100. So like, give me a follow.
Yes, agreed. Gary needs more followers, and honestly, he makes really good work. So go check it out, and also pick up a copy of Dinosaurs versus Mars Bots. You won't regret it. And then, Cory, when is the animation conversation again?
Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Pacific.
And that's going to be on your channel. So check that out on Cory's channel. Our good friend Jim Lujan, and I'm sure some other cool.
The whole time I'm inking this, I'm thinking if I was doing this with a crow quill, it'd be so much better.
I love it. All right,
and if that makes sense. Go watch that episode.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a great book. If you're into comics, guys, like whoever's watching, if for some reason you didn't watch. It's worth it. It's worth it if you're into comics. It's worth it if you're independent ink. It's worth it if you're into like real meaty stories in your comics. So.
Yeah, 100%. That was a treat to even look at. So, all right, and thanks to everybody who showed up in the chats, and especially Squatchy, who it'll be interesting to see what you do with what we were talking about. I'm kind of
I'm
looking forward to
excited
it.
and scared. Yeah.
I know, me too. I think it's a great thing. I think that's the best thing about, well, okay, we're going to end up on a whole other tangent because I was going to start talking
I
about
like how you
roasting.
keep trying to close and
I
then
know,
bring really
I know.
interesting topics. I really got to go to bed. At first, I want to just mention tacos. Then,
To be,
let's talk about
to be
indie
continued, we'll talk about roasting, which can still tie into tacos. See, it closes full circle. All right.
There you go.
And we will see you guys. I'm sure I'll see you guys on a live stream shortly, or if not, like I'll probably see you on Cory's thing on Wednesday because I might be watching along with you guys. All right.
Cool.
Bye.